Welcome. This is AFJ TV, the Alliance of Families for Justice, brought to you by Eagle Dimensions. I'm your host, Kevin Barron, and the mission of the Alliance of Families for Justice is to support, empower, and mobilize the families of those who are incarcerated and those with criminal records. You can get more information about the Alliance of Families for Justice at www.afj-ny.org. That's www.afj-ny.org. My host today is Brother Lonnie Lewis. He is a volunteer for the Alliance of Families for Justice, doing some great work. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start out, Lonnie, with just talking a little bit about yourself, your story, as far back as you want to go, and then leading up to how you got involved with the Alliance of Families for Justice.
Okay, so my name is Lonnie Lewis. I am from a little town in Long Island called Wyandanch, and I was born and raised there, and just a kid from the streets of Wyandanch. Graduated high school in 1999, ended up going into the military, spent 13 years active duty in the Army, got a couple of deployments under my belt. After the military, I went back to school to pursue my bachelor's in psychology. I worked in mental health for 6 years, 6.5 years. And then I transitioned from that, came back to New York, and within the first 90 days of me being back in New York, I went to this conference called the Beyond the Bars Conference. Mm-hmm. And at the Beyond the Bars Conference is where... It's at Columbia University, right? And while I was at the Beyond the Bars Conference, Sophia Elijah, our executive director, she was hosting a panel, her and a couple of the other people from AFJ. And I sat in the room with them, and I heard a lot of good talk, and I heard, the excellent things that they were saying, but then I had some questions. So I asked her a particular question, and I guess the question stuck with her, because afterwards we connected, and a couple of months later I gave her a call, and I started volunteering with AFJ, and I've been here since. Mm-hmm. So now I'm the project coordinator for the works that we're doing with the New York Women's Foundation. Mm-hmm. On the campaign to help close Rikers.
Mm-hmm. So I want to back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. You were in the military.
Yes. How
has the military experience affected you, or how does it help you in the work that you're doing now?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, to be honest with you. What the military did was, the military doesn't change people. What it does is it brings out what's already in you. Mm. A lot of people feel like you go into the military and you become a different person. It's not the truth. You come into the military, or you go into the military, and they drill what the military values are. But those values should mirror what your values are anyway: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. These are all things that most of our parents teach us anyway, and these are things that most of us learn prior to going into the military anyway. So my experiences prior to going into the military are what helped me to be the better soldier, to be the good soldier that I was, because I come from very humble means. I didn't have a lot growing up, so going into the military, humility is something that I brought with me, mm-hmm. and it just helped me to excel during my time in the military. What did stick with me though is the camaraderie, mm-hmm. right? So if you're one of my people and you're my friend, and we are connected, we're connected, you have a loyal connection for the rest of your life. So the military definitely helped me to focus in on what it is that my mission is, and never stop fighting for that mission to be accomplished until it's accomplished. So
now, there are a lot of organizations dealing with criminal justice reform. Mm-hmm. What makes AFJ different from all those other groups that's out there?
Well, in my experience, from the time that I had come back to New York, I had some experiences with a couple of other organizations. What stood out about the Alliance of Families for Justice is the focus on not just the incarcerated individual, but the family of the incarcerated individual. I come from a family of, it was almost like a rites of passage to be incarcerated in my family. And not just my family, this is something that affected my entire community.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of many young men that didn't have their father or their uncle or their grandfather in some cases home to guide them because they were all incarcerated during time of state. So AFJ stood out because it like I said, it focused on the family. And that's what we do. We focus on not just because when somebody's doing a bid or when somebody's incarcerated, that family's doing that time with them.
Exactly.
So I was impressed. I was actually overwhelmed by the fact that this organization emphasizes the wellness of the family. And so that's why I decided to, lock in with AFJ, and that's why I'm still here.
And, the same thing attracted me.
Right.
As I said, there's a lot of organizations out there that are doing similar type work, but their focus is really not on the families.
Right.
There's a lot of focus on the folks inside.
Right.
Because there's a lot of inhumanity and madness going on inside.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of focus on reentry. There's a lot of reentry programs, and it needs to be.
Right.
Because that's a huge challenge. But as you said, I didn't see any organizations focusing on the families.
Right.
And like you said, the families go through time too. My wife was away for 9.5 years, and I had the task of dealing with five children.
Right.
And although I had family support, I had support from my church, it was still a tremendous challenge.
Very hard.
So when AFJ was talking about the focus on the family, I was like, wow, that's something that I didn't get,
Right.
from any organization. And that really attracted me. So tell me, you're involved in this Close Rikers campaign, right?
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So, just for people that are not aware, Mayor de Blasio announced in 2017 that Rikers Island was going to close for good. When he announced that Rikers was going to close for good, the city, there's just a big, people just don't know what is it going to look like, how's it going to go, where are these people going to go, where are the women going to be put, are the women going to be centrally located, where are the guards going to go, I mean, everywhere,
A lot of pieces
it's such a logistical monster, people just don't see how it can happen. So what MOCJ, is the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, has done is they've put out a plan, and it's on their website, and you can find it on NY. I think it's closerikers.nyc.gov is the website, and you can go in and you can see a detailed plan. I'll go into a couple of pieces of it. The first thing is that it's not going to be a centralized location anymore, like the way Rikers is. It's going to be, everybody's going to be disseminated in borough-based facilities.
Let me stop you just for a minute and back up. Why do we need to close Rikers, period?
I mean, we can start with names. One of the main names that we all know recently is Khalif Browder. Right? So we have these situations that are happening in Rikers Island. It's just an inhumane environment, not just for the people that are incarcerated there, but for the people that have to work there also. Right? So when you're in the jungle and you're surrounded by animals, you're going to act like an animal. So if you're in an environment where people are treated terribly, right, constantly, it's not clean. There are rodents. There's insects. Right? People just it's hard for people to live. The quality of life is terrible. So everyone that's in that environment is going to act accordingly. Right? Unfortunately, we as Black and brown people are the people that are vastly the people that are incarcerated. So we get the brunt. Right? We get the beatings. We get killed. We don't get the mental health services that we need. We don't get the proper addiction services that we need. Right? So those are a couple of reasons why we need to close.
Now, these are people that are awaiting trial. They haven't been convicted.
Right. So that's the key. The key to this is Rikers Island is not it's not a prison.
Right,
It's
right.
a jail. It's like having a county. Like I'm from Long Island, so in Long Island we have Suffolk County and Nassau County, and in Suffolk County we got Riverhead and Yampay. Those are jails, right? These are holding facilities until you go to trial and get your time and go upstate. So you would think in a place that's not supposed to be a long-term facility, at least it would be clean.
Right,
you know,
right.
you'd have the proper services because, you know, I'm not going to be here very long.
Right.
Unfortunately, some people end up being in Rikers Island for years, awaiting trial, and they're in there for so long for something as small as $1,000 bail, right? So these people can't make bail, and these very small numbers, and they're stuck there for years.
So if you're in poverty, the likelihood of you being there for a long time increases.
Yes. So if you are like myself, like I said, I didn't grow up with a lot. So if you are on the lower realm of the socioeconomic status platform, then you get no love.
Mhm.
You get no love, and you get treated like an animal.
And you have people there, like we said, haven't been proven guilty,
Right.
but their life has been turned completely upside down.
Altered.
They lose their jobs. They're not around their family.
Yeah.
You know, it's total disruption of a person's life.
Yeah, and this is something that we focus on in our training. So we will be doing weekly meetings. So the boroughs that we're focused on with our campaign are Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say Manhattan, I mean Harlem specifically. So every week we're doing meetings at different venues. We're hosted by, like this week we're being hosted by an organization out of Brooklyn called Guns Down.
Okay.
Right? So a friend of our organization, his name is Franz. Yeah, Franz. Franz is hosting us, and his organization is hosting us in Brooklyn this Friday. And in that meeting, we will discuss what this Rikers Island project looks like and the closing of it. So just to circle back around to what it looks like, there's going to be borough-based facilities, tentatively, and in each of those borough-based facilities, there's supposed to be, you know, some natural light coming in. There's supposed to be, you know, just more family-oriented visiting areas, and the whole process to get into that facility is not going to be as long and as degrading as the process to get into Rikers is. Because if anybody's been to Rikers, they know the process alone is degrading. You got to get to Rikers Island. It takes, God forbid, you're coming from, let's just say, you're coming from Queens and you're going to Rikers, or you're coming from the Bronx and you're going to Rikers. You got to get there, right, which takes 2-3 hours. And then once you get there, you cross that bridge and you get in. Then there's another 1.5 to 2 hour process just to get through the checkpoint to get into the visit. And then there's the visit process. And then there's the long journey to get back home. So
that's a whole day.
You miss a day at work.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a child, you miss a day at school. You know, if you're a lawyer, I hope you don't have other cases that day. Right? So these are some of the points that the city has been using to justify the closing of Rikers Island, outside of the fact that there's so much inhumane treatment of the incarcerated individuals in there. So,
okay, we're going to continue our discussion with Lonnie Lewis on AFJ TV. We'll be right back.
My name is Franz Michel. Well, my story began when I was pretty young. I come from a very good household. I was making poor choices from a young age. I was introduced into a world of narcotics. I never used any narcotics, but it was a way for me to make some money. But that's what ultimately led me into being incarcerated. I was given life twice, as a matter of fact. I met Sophia, a mutual friend. This mutual friend, we had dinner together, and they always spoke about Sophia, what she was doing. They knew what I was doing. I have an organization called Guns Down. And when we did meet, it was funny. I had met her before. I had met her while I was incarcerated. She has an amazing organization. first off, what has to start is what you spoke of in the beginning, the stigma that's attached to a person. He committed a crime, he's a bad person. No, he made a mistake. And that's the misconception. It's a well-known fact that young black men, young brown men, we have a harder time getting doors open to us than anyone else. Proper education, the proper, like I said, resources that young men need, the opportunities that young men need, and that's given to them. Who would want to wake up in the morning and say, I want to commit a crime? Give them the resources that they need, and I'm sure they'll see something different, like myself. I want to bond with my daughters. It'll be the first time that it'll just be me and them. I have amazing children. I can't even explain the type of children I have. Like I said, with AFJ, it opened up another window for me to be able to help change our lives and try to become an even better father. Support them, show them that you love them. When a person's incarcerated, you're around so many people, but it's the loneliest place. If you give support to a loved one, it makes them want to do something better. When a person believes that people care about them, they do better. They try to do better. They try not to disappoint.
Welcome back. This is AFJ TV. I'm talking with Lonnie Lewis, who is a member of the Alliance of Families for Justice. We were discussing the Close Rikers campaign. I wanted to continue that. There's been some conflict or discussion about the location of these borough-based facilities that will be housing those who are formerly on Rikers.
Okay. So each borough is going to have either a newly renovated or a newly constructed facility, right? So in the Bronx right now, we know that everybody's on what we call the boat or the barge, which is literally a barge that sits on the water and it's used as a prison. A lot of the pushback that the city is seeing is people are concerned about the logistics of it, right? Where's this facility going to go? How's it going to impact my commute in the morning? How's it going to impact my taxes? How's it going to impact my neighborhood? Is it going to be an eyesore that's going to just be plopped down in the middle of my borough? And there's answers for those, right? So in Queens, we know that there's already some facilities down there. There's a facility down there that focuses on the child care portion, right? So when it comes to the Queens house or what's going to be in Queens, there's already room there. So they won't have to tear anything down. It'll just be a new construction that's being built up. In Brooklyn, the Brooklyn house that's there now is going to be the same site for the new Brooklyn house. All they're going to do is just tear it down and build it back up from the ground up. In the Bronx, there's going to have to be a new facility because it's the barge right now, and there's no. And ironically, well, I guess not ironically, the Bronx is, in my experience, the borough that's the city's getting the most pushback from.
Right.
Because if you notice in other parts of the city, the gentrification process has already started. Gentrification is just now reaching to the Bronx. So now that place is being gentrified, there's so much money going into the Bronx. there's a huge concern about where that facility is going to be because you can't build another facility on top of the barge because it's on the water. So the Bronx, in my experience thus far, has been one of the boroughs that's been giving the most pushback.
Now I heard there was some issue as to there was a lot, an NYPD lot, what they were talking about putting it there,
Right.
or by the courthouse, closer to the courthouse,
Right.
which I think New York State has more control over. So there's
Right.
that issue going on there.
Right. So there is a tow lot.
Right,
in the
tow lot,
Bronx.
exactly.
So when your vehicle gets towed, it gets taken to the Bronx, and there's this huge plot of land there, and it's plenty of room for them to build a facility there. But the question is, if we build this facility here, where are we going to put these vehicles that we're towing now? So that's the concern there. But I mean, that's something that logistically I think the city can work out. I think that's a good spot to build a facility if you're going to build a facility.
Are the elected officials on board with that in the Bronx?
So there's some pushback. There's some pushback because, like I said, their constituency is saying to them, or their constituents they're saying we don't want it. We don't want a jail in the Bronx. Put those people somewhere else. So yeah, that's the pushback that a lot of them are getting. To be honest with you, I haven't heard many people in the Bronx say that, okay, we're okay with this. We're okay with this being built in. And if we actually look at the numbers, if you look at where most of the people in New York City that are from New York City that are locked up in Rikers Island come from, it's 5 zip codes, right? 2 of them are in Harlem, 3 of them are in Brooklyn. I'm sorry, 1 in Harlem, 1 in the Bronx, and 3 of them are in Brooklyn, right? So if per capita you don't have a lot of your people that are being locked up, why do you want this jail in your borough, right? So the people, it benefits more the people in Brooklyn. I mean, I guess if that's the word you could use, benefit. But what it does for the people in Brooklyn is it keeps the incarcerated individuals closer to their families.
Right, exactly.
So now my mother or my father or whoever's coming to visit me doesn't have to take an entire day off work.
Right.
They can come visit me, see me by 10 o'clock, and then be at work before lunch,
Right.
and then still get some kind of pay, some kind of quality out of that day. My children won't have to miss school, right?
There'll probably be more visitations.
And it'll be more visitation, which is going to improve the quality of life for the incarcerated individual, right? Because we know science shows us that people that have that constant connection and contact with their family, they get through their time a little bit easier.
Right.
And they're not susceptible to a lot of the things that some people are that don't get a chance to see their family, right? So, so that's Brooklyn, and then that's the Bronx. And then another big part of the conversation has been where are women going to be housed? Are the women going to be in these facilities under the umbrella of a male facility, or is there going to be a centralized facility for females? Well, the mayor Mop J, the mayor's office for criminal justice, just announced recently that they have decided that all women will be centrally located.
Okay.
They haven't announced the borough that they're going to be in yet, but logistically it would make sense for them to be in Queens.
Right.
Right? We don't know that that's what's going to happen, but logistically it just makes sense to put all of the women in Queens because there's space there, and it's already, like I said, a facility down there that's based around children and women needs and getting the things that they need as far as care and stuff like that. So we don't know that it's going to be Queens, but logistically it would make sense for it to be Queens. But again, Mop J has announced that all women will be centrally located.
Now you talked a little bit about the environment, how it should be a little more visitor friendly. How's that going to play out? So how's it going to look, these facilities?
So I use a video in my training, and there's a short video, and it shows us some examples of how in other states they've changed the way that the facilities look. You walk into the facility, like I said, it's an open air facility. You have natural light coming in. You don't have the guards are not behind these glass walls where they're separated from the individual that they're dealing with. It's an open area. You talk to them directly. It's just a more deliberate, user-friendly, visitor-friendly process to get in. Whereas now, you go to Rikers now, and It's take your shoes off. You know, if you're a female, pop your bra strap. You know, they want to go in the waistline of your pants, and it's really dehumanizing,
Yeah.
right? It's really degrading the way that they treat you. So, with this new facility, the way that the new facilities will run, and the training that they're getting, which is called trauma-informed training, it's supposed to make it a little bit of an easier process. So what it looks like is you come in, you know, you get through the intake process fairly quickly, 25 minutes at a max, hopefully, and then you go into another open area where your family member will be brought out, and you'll be able to sit there and actually have a visit with your family member. So that's what the process is proposed to look like, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like because this is going to take. Rikers is not going to be closed until 2027. If the plan stays on course the way that it is right now, without any hiccups, it won't be until 2027 that Rikers is actually closed. So,
Now, there's some people that are upset that it's taking that long. You know, there's folks. I mean, they probably don't know as much as you guys know.
right,
They want it to happen like right away.
right.
Is it a possibility that it could happen sooner, or no? It's
There's a lot of moving pieces, and I'm not. So let me just say that we don't work for the city. We don't get funding from any state, federal. We don't get any of that stuff. We are a privately funded organization, and we work for the people. So when I speak as a representative of the Alliance of Families for Justice, I speak in the interest of the people that I talk to every day, or the people that I interact with, which are mothers, grandmothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children of people that are incarcerated. And what people are telling me is that they understand that it's not going to take a long time. They understand that it's not going to happen overnight, but they do want it to happen quickly. Unfortunately, it can't happen quickly. If you look at what it's going to take to get the people from Rikers Island into these new facilities, that in itself is going to take a long time. That's going to probably take about a year process to really get all the beds the way that they need to be, and then get people transitioned over there. So that part alone is going to take a long time. Let alone the construction of all the facilities. Right? We got to get. Well, we don't have to get, but the city has to get, state permits, and it has to be. There's going to be unions involved with this thing, so there's going to be some union things that have to be met. There's going to be some, there's just a bunch of logistical things that have to happen before these facilities can be fully built and realized in real time, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Now, in terms of population, how is that going to work out? How many people, how many prisoners are going to be in each facility, and is the guard population going to be decreased?
Okay, that's a good question. So, the population of Rikers Island right now, it's below 8,000. I think it's somewhere around 6,900. The goal was to get it below 8,000 before they could start the process. So we've already crushed that. Less people are in Rikers Island, less people are being arrested, less people are being detained. So each facility is supposed to have the capacity for 2,000 beds, right? Which would make sense, because if the numbers are below 8,000 right now, that's about 1,500 people per borough, if you do all 5 boroughs. So each facility will have a 2,000 bed capacity, and they want to try to keep it somewhere around 1,500. They never want to be close to max capacity, for whatever reason. I don't know what their reason is, other than the fact that we just don't want people locked up. So 2,000 bed facility, and I'm not sure what the city's plan is as far as where the guards are going to come from. I would hope that the guards that work in those borough-based facilities are people from those boroughs. And the reason you want people from those boroughs is because if I'm a guard and I'm working in this facility, and I know the kid from around the corner or the kid down the block is in this facility, I have a relationship. Me and his mother go to the same church. Me and his dad might, be on the same bowling team or something like that. So I'm going to not only just make sure that that this kid is being treated correctly, I'm going to make sure that, I may not be able to tell his family, legal stuff, but I can tell him your kid is okay.
Right.
He's doing all right. he's, if he's not calling home, and I see his dad, and his dad says, my son's not calling me, or his mom says, my son's not calling me, is everything okay with him? I can say, he's okay, So I think that also in that term, if you police your own and you take care of your own, then you will help your own to become better. So I think the rehabilitation process starts from the time that somebody gets put handcuffs on. So from the time that you put handcuffs on me and I'm going to Rikers Island or wherever I'm going, my rehabilitation process should be starting from that point. And if I have guards that look familiar and I know them from my neighborhood, I'll be able to at least feel comfortable enough to express myself to them, and then they can help me with my rehabilitation process.
Okay. We're going to take another short break, and then we'll be back with Lonnie Lewis from the Alliance for Families for Justice.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory.
1 out of 4 human beings with their hands on bars, shackled, in the world are locked up here in the land of the free.
Hi, my name is Sophia Elijah, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance of Families for Justice. I'm a criminal defense lawyer by training. And I decided that I wanted to deal with systemic change because I had trained enough lawyers, hundreds and hundreds of them, and now it was time for me to take on bringing about policy change and legislative change. And I did that in the not-for-profit context. Mass incarceration is important to me, as it should be to everyone, because it impacts our society as a whole.
In all reality, just as our name says, Alliance of Families for Justice, as the organization, we try to come together as families, supporting each other through these difficult times, supporting each other through this stigma of incarceration, through the hardships of dealing with incarceration. Minimally 100,000 people, because if you think about it, right? So with this package issue alone, we assisted every single person who is currently incarcerated in New York State right now. Even if they didn't know about it, we helped them. But at the end of the day, an incarcerated person is someone's loved one. And that incarcerated person loves someone, regardless of their crime. And so we always have to be a voice for those who cannot speak.
And we'll rise up, I like the waves, we'll rise up, in spite of the ache.
Welcome back. This is AFJ TV. I'm here with Lonnie Lewis, who is a member of the Alliance for Families for Justice. And we've been discussing the Close Rikers campaign. And Lonnie, I wanted to ask you how this bail reform bill that they just passed up in Albany, how that's going to affect your whole campaign, the Close Rikers campaign.
Okay, so like we discussed a little bit earlier, we had people that were sitting on Rikers Island for $500 or for $700 or $1,000 because people couldn't raise the capital to make bail. So with the bail reform bill, we're trying to focus on, first off, why are we keeping people incarcerated for such small amounts of money, right? We should be able to go away. I don't speak for everyone, but I do speak for myself, and this is my genuine belief. We should have a cashless bail system, right? We should go away from cash bail. We should go away from, and especially for nonviolent crimes. Right. If this is a nonviolent crime, why are we keeping somebody incarcerated for something as small as $700 or something as small as $500? So with this bill that just passed, it's focusing on that. Focus on not keeping people locked up for these minuscule amounts of money. So how that's going to affect our campaign is first and foremost, we're not going to have as many people locked up. If people are not being held for these small amounts of money, that's going to knock 20, 30%
That
off
should
of.
bring that number down.
It's going to bring the number down tremendously. So, if we don't have the numbers, why are we justifying keeping Rikers Island open when we have 8 out of the 11 facilities in New York City are on Rikers Island? If we have this bail reform that's going on and we don't have the numbers to justify keeping this place open, why are we keeping it open?
Exactly.
So what it does for the campaign that that we're working on as far as closing Rikers is just gonna it works in our favor. It justifies closing Rikers. It justifies having smaller, safer borough-based facilities. So yeah, it works in our favor.
Is there any discussion on removing mentally ill persons and drug addicted persons from the prison system? They really need to be in some different kind of facilities.
Right. So I don't know the exact number. I think it's something like 40% of the people on Rikers Island have unaddressed mental health issues. 40%. So if 40% of the people on Rikers Island have unaddressed mental health issues, how can you even charge somebody?
Right.
How can somebody, they have issues that have to be addressed before you can even sit them in a courtroom and say, you know what, we're going to give you 1 to 3, and we're justified for X, Y, and Z. But wait a minute, I got these mental health issues that I was dealing with before I did this crime that I wasn't getting help with out on the street. And now that I'm incarcerated, I'm really not getting the help that I need. And I'm being criminalized, and I'm being beat on, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen with people that need mental health issues addressed. And the main thing that's going on right now is that in each of these borough-based facilities, I think it's going to be an area where people that have mental health issues are going to be housed until those issues are dealt with. And if those issues can't be dealt with, then they need to be shipped out to someplace else that can really address the issues that they have. So there is talks of that. There's nothing concrete yet, and we know how that goes. And nobody ever commits to anything, right? These things are all tentative. This entire plan is tentative. Because once Mayor de Blasio is out of office, the next mayor can come in and say, you know what, I don't like this idea. We're not going to close Rikers Island. So
yeah, I would think, and that's just me, maybe I'm being naive, that if you take care of mentally ill people, that's a great percentage of people that's not going to be in the prison system.
Yep.
They're going to be properly taken care of. Because locking them up and throwing them in solitary confinement and beating them up, that's not going to make them any better. That's making them worse.
Right.
I'm sure the suicide rate goes up, and all that. And the same thing with drug addiction.
Absolutely.
You got people in there that are sick. They don't belong in there. They need medical treatment. They don't need to be locked up. In the facilities.
Right. So this is an issue that this is overwhelmingly around the country. It's not just here in New York. Black and brown people. We've been criminalized. We've continuously been criminalized. Everything that we do is criminalized. When there was, I was just a baby when this happened, but I am a result of the 1980s crack era. Both of my parents had addiction problems, and like I said, anybody that was born between 76 and 90. we were all have been tremendously affected by this. So if they continue to criminalize people that have addiction, right, and they throw them in Rikers Island, they throw them in prison, they throw them in jail, it doesn't help them get over the addiction. All it does is it makes them work harder to find the drug or whatever it is that they need to feed the addiction. There's a tremendous amount of drug use in Rikers Island. There's a tremendous amount of drug usage in all of our state facilities. You don't take me out of the street and say you can't get your drug and then put me in a facility and expect me not to find it. I'm gonna find it one way or the other, right? There was a documentary that I saw a couple of years back called Scarface for Life, and in this documentary, the narrator talked about how some of the guards were bringing drugs in on Rikers Island. People will find their fix.
Oh yeah.
So in my opinion, we need to help people get over the addiction before we can even begin to try to hold anyone accountable for the crimes that they've committed. Because people are driven by addiction.
If you take the mentally ill out of prisons and give them proper treatment, if you take drug addicts out of the prisons and give them proper treatment, the
population would drop so low that we would not be justified in
Yes.
even having prisons.
Exactly right.
We wouldn't be justified in having jails in New York City, because most of the people that are there are people that are
Yeah.
addicted to drugs or have some kind of mental illness.
Right.
And those numbers are overwhelming, so if we take those out, there's no money to be made.
That's right.
There's no money to be made, and we all know prison and jail was a big business. That's a big business.
Profit machine.
It's a profit machine. So, yeah, if we focus more on helping people get the help they need while they're on the street, we won't have the prison population that we have.
Anything more you want to say on the Close Rackets campaign before we shift to?
Just that if anybody wants to, volunteer or wants to come on board and try to help out with the project or anything that we have going on with AFJ, that they can reach out to us at afj-ny.org. That is www.afjn-ny.org.
Or they can call number also 347-973-0580. 347-973-0580. I want to shift to some of the other stuff that AFJ is doing.
Right.
I know we're both involved in the Family Empowerment Circle.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
All right.
What the goal is, how it's going.
So one of the many things. So this, I think, of all the things that we do at AFJ, I think this is the thing that hits that I'm probably the most passionate about. So we do this thing called Family Empowerment Circles on Tuesday evenings. Every Tuesday evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can find us here at 8 West 126th Street on the 3rd floor. And we do what's called the Family Empowerment Circle. And what it is we have families and formerly incarcerated individuals that come together for 2 hours on Tuesday nights, and we discuss everything under the sun. We address what it felt like being the individual incarcerated, what it felt like being the spouse or the partner of the person incarcerated, what it felt like being the child, which is one of my most passionate subjects, because like I said, I'm the child of a formerly incarcerated parent. And I think what's the most amazing part about it is I'm seeing more and more children show up at these meetings. Every Tuesday, we have more and more children of formerly incarcerated parents showing up. Mental health is not something that's been at the forefront of the Black and brown communities.
Right.
And as of just maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, now we're starting to see a big shift in the way that Black and brown people think about this.
Get past
right?
the stigma thing.
You have to get past that stigma, because we were always, it's always been, oh, you're a weirdo, you got a therapist,
Right.
or oh man, he crazy, he going to talk to somebody, or she's going to talk to somebody, something's wrong with them. But once I think as our community as a whole, we've gotten past that stigma. There's nothing wrong with, because this post-traumatic stress disorder going on, if you are in a house and the police kick your door in and they take one of your parents away, or if you're laying on the couch watching TV and the police come knock on the door and they're looking for somebody that's in your house, and you don't have these interactions with police. And unfortunately, on the other side, the police are not always the kindest people when they come to the house.
Right.
So they bogart their way into your house, traumatize your daughter, traumatize your son, traumatize your nieces and nephews. Your mother or father may be elderly, traumatize them. And then they take you away, and now you're gone for 4 years, and your family's here left dealing with the trauma from that one interaction with those police officers. So what our Family Empowerment Group does is it allows us to address those issues. We have a licensed therapist that has been in the business for 40 years. He also does family group sessions and individual sessions for free. Again, I'll say for free. These are free mental health services provided by the Alliance of Families for Justice. Dr. Ramel, he's an awesome therapist. I have a very close relationship with him. I speak with him frequently, and I can tell you that my life is improving just from knowing this man. So if your family or if you want some services provided. Just come out and come talk to us, man. And we as a community are starting our healing process, and it starts with talking about what is hurting us from the inside out.
And it's a safe environment.
Very safe environment. You can come in, you can be yourself. I listen, I've seen people come in and kick their shoes off and sit back, and we always have, we have light snacks, and there's water and there's fruit, there's, all this stuff, and then there's after the meetings also, right? So after the meetings are over, a lot of people linger and they make connections with each other.
Yes, and the network.
And the network, and they're supporting, we have people that support each other outside of the family empowerment circles on Tuesdays. And every week when we come in on Tuesday and people check in, sometimes people are having good weeks, sometimes people are having bad weeks, but we are family and we support each other through it. One day we had somebody that had been having a terrible week, and they had lost 2 people in that week, and the entire group just stopped, and we just sat in that moment with that person, and we let that person just vent what they were feeling, and nobody said anything. And you just sat there and listened. And when the person was done sharing what she had to share, she was so thankful because we supported her. And that's what the entire group is about. It's just about supporting us and helping us to grow and get past the pain. So.
It's a great environment of support. And sometimes you think you're the only ones going through this stuff, and you're internalizing it, and you're all by yourself.
Yeah.
And now you're in this environment where you see other people going through similar things. Although your situation may be unique, there's similar challenges that we're all kind of going through.
Right. So, I turned 38 on April 1st, and I'll say for probably about 15 years, I had started. After my last deployment, after my first deployment, I saw some things on that deployment that triggered me to think about things that had happened when I was a child, and I never addressed them. And I went through that entire time in the military, and I never really addressed, the root of what it was that I was going through. And I found myself in this cycle of making these same decisions over and over, same mistakes over and over, and it never clicked in my head that I hadn't addressed some things that I needed to address. And coming to this family empowerment circle, I talked to people that looked like me, and although our paths were different, and I went into the military, some people didn't, at the very root, we had some of the same issues from when we were children. And I found myself making the same mistakes as this person that making the same mistakes, but we lived 2 completely different lives. But it all goes back down to the root. And so going to these family empowerment circles helps you address these things, and it helps you to just kind of bring everything full circle. And like you said, I connected with some people that had some of the same stuff going on that I had, and I had no idea. I thought I was the only one going through these things, and thankfully I wasn't the only person that went through it, because I was able to make some connections and talk to some people and deal with some things.
We're going to take another short break, and then we're going to close out. This is AFJ TV.
So we're going to start off in Harlem, go to the Bronx, through Yonkers, Sing Sing, Ossining, Peekskill, and then we'll make our way over to Nyack and up through Poughkeepsie, Kingston, New Paltz, further up through the area of Coxsackie, and all the way up to Albany, where we'll have the final rally and press conference commemorating, obviously, the uprising and massacre in Attica back in 1971, and where we will draw more attention to the human rights abuses in the prisons and jails. The March for Justice is focused on a number of different aspects of mass incarceration, but the central focus is the conditions of confinement, the human rights violations that occur inside New York's prisons and jails. And the march will focus on those conditions and enable family members to raise their voices in unity to do something about it. The prisons are built with large walls, not only to keep the people who are incarcerated inside, but to keep the public outside from knowing what's happening inside. And so this march helps to bring that wall down, to build connections. We are getting support letters from people on death row in North Carolina who are saying, keep up the good work. There's a man who's incarcerated in Michigan, and he sends us a check for $6 each month to say, please apply this to help build for this march.
Well, I'm marching because I think a lot of the inhumanity of the criminal justice system needs to be put in the forefront of our minds. My wife was incarcerated, so I have a good idea of the impact it has on families. I have 5 children. When a father or a mother is taken out of the household, that has a profound effect on families, especially on children. So I think there's not enough focus on that, not enough emphasis on supporting the families in a lot of different ways.
If I tell you the truth, the real reason why I'm marching, because there are too many other brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters that can't march with us. And I personally believe they should be free to march with us, but they can't. And for as long as every single one of them is in a situation where they're being abused, exploited, and essentially are being kept prisoner, I'm gonna keep marching until they're home with me so they can march by my side.
I'm marching personally because the issue of mass incarceration and the way people are treated by this system affects my community, affects my family, affects where I come from, and affects the future that I want to see for my children. On a very personal level, when I was a high school student, my high school sweetheart was sent to prison at the same time that I was going off to college. And I spent my college years going to visit him in prison. And I know that shame of never telling any of my family or my friends where my boyfriend was. And I see that pain in the family members who come and get involved with the Alliance of Families for Justice. So on a personal level and on a professional level, I think that I don't have a choice but then to do everything that I can to bring about a change. And that includes walking 180 miles. We all know the old adage, divide and conquer, but if you build and bring people together, then ultimately you're going to have victory.
Welcome back. This is AFJ TV, Alliance of Families for Justice. We've been discussing Closing Rikers, the Close Rikers campaign, which Brother Lonnie Lewis is thoroughly involved in and is really entrenched in that and committed to it. Lonnie, I just want to close out. Any other comments you want to make about anything in general, AFJ?
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, this Close Rikers campaign is just one specific project that AFJ is working on, but we have so many other things that we have going on. So when I first got involved with the Alliance of Families for Justice, our main focus was felony disenfranchisement, right? So giving people with felonies the right to vote and making sure that people that have felonies in the state of New York know that they do, that the government has signed an executive order so that they can vote. You do have the right to vote. So just getting the word out about that, making sure that people that come home that are paroled know that once you go see your parole officer is supposed to be telling you, hey, you are on this list of people that are eligible to vote. Here's a voter registration or whatever the case is. Make sure that you're going out there to vote. So that's one thing. And then the next thing is that the Alliance of Families for Justice also has a legal support unit, right? So we have a team of lawyers that, and let me start by saying these services are free, right? The service is free. So we have a team of lawyers that are working closely with family members that are a part of the Alliance of Families for Justice to help them with their children's cases or their spouses' cases. So if you are out there and you need help, we can't help you if you don't reach out to us, right? You just got to reach out to us and let us know what it is that you need, and if we can facilitate it, and if we can help in any way, we will definitely be there to help you. And if nothing else, just come on in and come hang out with us and get some support, because we know that it's very, very hard for family members of people that are incarcerated, especially if the person that's incarcerated is either in the box, or if something has happened to them and they're not being treated fairly, the family is suffering along with the incarcerated individual. So reach out to the Alliance of Families for Justice. Come out, see what we got going on. We got a lot of great things going on. We got a family retreat coming up this summer. I think it's in August is our family retreat. And it's where we're going to take 60 people from the city, and we're going to go up into a very quiet, serene area, and we're gonna love on ourselves, and we're gonna do some, just relaxation and just relationship building up there. So the Alliance of Families for Justice, we got a lot going on, and we're always looking for people that want to volunteer. If you want to get actively involved, like I said before, just reach out to us on the website or give us a call, and we'll be here for you.
Yeah, those family retreats, I'm gonna tell you, I've been to all the ones we've had.
Yeah.
And they're growing larger and larger. The kids love it, man.
Yeah.
We have teenagers that just have a ball. And in addition to just having fun, and everything is free food, playing games. We also have, some sessions and workshops where we discuss some of these issues that are going on. So it's a nice mixture of, relaxation, entertainment, fun, and also dealing with some of the issues that we're all facing.
Yeah.
And again, in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff came out during these last couple of sessions.
I'll tell you, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the last one we had a couple of separate groups. We had a group of individuals that were formerly incarcerated. We had a group of parents of individuals that were formerly incarcerated, and we had a group of children of people that were formerly incarcerated. And I was blessed enough to be able to facilitate the group for children, and there were some teenagers in the group, and there were some adults in the group, and there were some young adults in the group, and there were some younger people in the group, younger kids in the group. And the one common thread amongst everybody that was sitting in that group is the way that our parents being gone affected us. People don't see this correlation a lot, and people don't make the comparison between the two a lot, but I compare me being gone on my deployments and my children not having me there to my father being gone, incarcerated while I was a young man, right? People don't see the correlation, but here's the deal. An absent parent is an absent parent. Doesn't matter if they're incarcerated, if they're deployed, if they're working in another country. A parent not being there is a parent not being there. The only difference is the stigma that comes with having a parent that's incarcerated. Children are afraid to say, I have a parent that's incarcerated. I was always afraid to say I had a parent that's incarcerated when I was outside of my neighborhood. But when I was inside my neighborhood, my friends' parents were locked up with my parent, with my dad. So there was no shame in it. But when you go out into the world, I lived in a bubble, and when you go outside of your bubble, when you go outside of your comfort zone, it's almost like a dark cloud over you or something. It's like you're afraid to tell people these things. But that group with children of formerly incarcerated parents, I think we left that group, and the children knew, listen, you don't have to wear this. You don't have to wear this fear anymore. It's okay. You didn't incarcerate your parent, and your parent didn't love you any less because they were incarcerated. So we left with a renewed sense of pride in ourselves and fearlessness. So I think if you want to come out and be a part of that, come out and be a part of it and support it. So,
my sons still talk about that.
It was a wonderful group. Your son was amazing.
Yeah,
your son was amazing. It was a wonderful group.
So there's a couple of other things, and then we're going to close out. In addition to the family retreats, we have regional conferences. The next one's going to be in Buffalo, where we discuss a variety of issues. We have guest speakers. We also have monthly meetings every month over at the National Black Theater, which is right on 5th Avenue between 125th and 126th Street. Go to our website. You can get all of that information, all the details, www.afj-ny.org, or give us a call, 347-973-0580. You've been listening to and watching the Alliance of Families for Justice TV, brought to you by Eagle Dimensions. I hope you have a great day. Peace. Enjoy.